Solving variable separable equations for the general solution. Welcome, everyone. Before we dive into today's lesson, let's take a quick look at where we are in our journey. In our previous subsection, we focused on the diagnostic side of things, learning how to look at a differential equation and identify whether it qualifies as a variable separable type. Now that you can spot them, today we are moving from identification to action. We are going to focus on the systematic, step-by-step process of actually solving these equations to find what we call the general solution. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is a general solution? Instead of finding just one single line on a graph, a general solution is an expression that represents an entire family of curves. It's a broader description that covers all possible paths that satisfy the equation. You will notice that this solution always contains an arbitrary constant, which we usually denote as capital C. This isn't something we add randomly. It appears naturally because the very process of integration, which we will be using heavily today, introduces this constant of integration. So, keep that in mind as we move forward to the conceptual framework in the next slide. The conceptual framework. Now that we know how to identify a variable separable equation, let's look at the conceptual framework behind the solution process. The core idea here is quite intuitive. We want to rearrange the equation so that each variable, along with its respective differential, is isolated on opposite sides of the equality sign. Essentially, we are grouping all the y terms with die on one side and all the x terms with dx on the other. Once we have successfully separated the variables, the calculus part becomes much simpler, as we can integrate both sides of the equation independently. To be more precise, let's look at the mathematical structure. Suppose we are given a first-order, first-degree differential equation in the form die over dx equals h of y multiplied by g of x. As long as h of y is not equal to 0, we can use algebra to rewrite this equation. We move the h of y term to the left by dividing, and we move the dx to the right by multiplying. This gives us 1 over h of y multiplied by die equals g of x multiplied by dx. Now, the next logical step is to apply integration to both sides. We write this as the integral of 1 over h of y with respect to y equals the integral of g of x with respect to x. After we perform the integration, we arrive at our general solution, which looks like this. h of y equals g of x plus c in this expression. H of y represents the antiderivative of 1 over h of y, and g of x represents the antiderivative of g of x, and, as we mentioned in the previous slide, we must include c, which is our arbitrary constant of integration. In the next slide, I will break this down into a clear, step-by-step procedure that you can follow every single time you encounter these problems. Step-by-step procedure to find the general solution. Now that we understand the conceptual framework and the goal of reaching a general solution, let's break down the actual workflow. To solve a variable separable equation, you don't need to guess. You simply follow these 5 manageable steps. Step 1 is algebraic separation. This is where you use your algebra skills to rearrange the equation. Your goal is to move every term containing y, and importantly, the differential die, over to the left-hand side. Simultaneously, move all terms containing x, along with the differential dx, over to the right-hand side. Think of it as sorting your variables into their own respective sides. Step 2 is integration. Once you have successfully isolated the variables, you apply the integral sign to both sides of the equation. This is the bridge that takes us from a differential equation to an algebraic one. Step 3 is evaluation. Now, you perform the actual integration. You'll rely on your knowledge of standard integration formulas, the same ones you've been practicing, to find the antiderivatives for both sides. Step 4 is the introduction of the constant. This is a crucial step that we'll see in the upcoming examples. As soon as you finish integrating, you must add the arbitrary constant, c, to one side of the equation. Usually, we place it on the side containing the independent variable, which is x. Finally, step 5 is simplification. This step is optional but highly recommended. If the algebra allows it, try to isolate y so that your final answer is expressed explicitly, in the form y equals f of x. However, if the equation becomes too messy or complex to solve for y, it is perfectly acceptable to leave the solution in what we call an implicit form. Keep these steps in mind, because in the next few slides, we are going to walk through some concrete examples to see this exact procedure in action. Illustrative examples. Now that we have established the theoretical framework and the step-by-step procedure, let's put that theory into practice with our first concrete example. In this mathematical application, our goal is to find the general solution for the differential equation where the derivative of y with respect to x is equal to x squared divided by y. Let's begin with step 1, which is algebraic separation. Looking back at our procedure, we need to move all the y terms to the left and all the x terms to the right. To do this, we multiply both sides of the equation by y and by dx. This successfully isolates our variables, leaving us with y die equals x squared dx. Moving on to step 2, we apply the integration step we discussed earlier. We place the integral sign in the front of both sides, so we are integrating y with respect to y on the left and integrating x squared with respect to x on the right. Now, for step 3, we evaluate these integrals. Using the power rule for integration, which we know states that the integral of x to the power of n is x to the power of n plus 1, all divided by n plus 1, we can solve both sides. Integrating y gives us 1/2 y squared, and integrating x squared gives us 1/3 x cubed. And as a crucial reminder from our previous slides, we must add our arbitrary constant, c, to the side containing our independent variable. So, we have 1/2 y squared equals 1/3 x cubed plus c. Finally, in step 4, we look for the final general solution. While our current expression is mathematically correct, it looks a bit messy with those fractions. To clean this up, let's multiply the entire equation by 6. This clears the denominators, giving us 3y squared equals 2x cubed plus 6c. Now, here is a professional tip. Since 6 times c is still just an arbitrary constant, we can simplify our notation by replacing 6c with a new constant, which we'll call k. This leaves us with a much cleaner implicit solution. 3y squared minus 2x cubed equals k. This concludes our first example. In the next slide, we will see how this exact same logic applies to a real-world scenario involving continuous growth. Illustrative examples continued. Now that we have seen how the method works with a purely algebraic example in the previous slide, let's look at something much more practical. In this second example, we are going to explore a real-world application involving continuous growth. You'll see that in fields like finance, when calculating compound interest, or in biology, when tracking population growth, we often use a specific differential equation. It is written as dp, dt equals rp. In this context, p represents the quantity, which could be your bank principal or a population size, t represents time, and r is our constant growth rate. Our goal here is to find the general solution for p. Let's apply the 5-step procedure we just discussed. Step 1, we need to separate the variables. Just like we did in example 1, we want all the p terms on the left and all the t terms on the right. By dividing both sides by p and multiplying by dt, we get 1 over p dp equals r dt. Step 2, now we apply the integral sign to both sides. We are looking at the integral of 1 over p dp equals the integral of r dt. Step 3, we evaluate these integrals. If you remember your integration rules, the integral of 1 over p is the natural log of the absolute value of p on the right side. Since r is just a constant, its integral with respect to t is simply r times t. Don't forget to add our constant of integration. See, so we have natural log of the absolute value of p equals rt plus c. Step 4, at this stage, we have an implicit solution, but it's much more useful if we can find an explicit solution for p. To isolate p, we need to undo the natural log by taking the exponential of both sides. This gives us e raised to the power of natural log of the absolute value of p, which equals e raised to the power of rt plus c. Because the exponential and the natural log cancel each other out, we are left with the absolute value of p equals e raised to the power of rt times e raised to the power of c. Step 5. Finally, let's simplify. Since e raised to the power of c is just another constant, we can replace it with a simpler symbol. Let's use a. This leaves us with our final general solution. P of t equals a e raised to the power of rt. As you can see, this beautiful formula is the standard mathematical model used for all types of exponential growth. Before we wrap up, let's take a moment to review some common pitfalls to watch out for in your own calculations. Common mistakes to avoid. Now, before we wrap up today's lesson with our final summary, I want to pause and discuss some common pitfalls. Even if you understand the concept of separating variables, it is very easy to make small, technical errors that can lead to an incorrect final answer. Let's look at 4 specific mistakes to watch out, easily avoided. First, and perhaps most importantly, is forgetting the constant. I see many students perform all the integration correctly, but then they wait until the very end of their algebraic simplification to add the constant. Please remember, the constant of integration must be added immediately after you perform the integration step. If you wait until after you've multiplied or divided both sides by other terms, you might not be able to account for how that constant is affected by the algebra. Second, keep a close eye on your separation of variables. A common mistake is leaving a differential, like dx or die, in the denominator of a fraction. When you are setting up your integrals, you must ensure that die and dx are always in the numerator. You simply cannot integrate a term if the differential is stuck in the denominator. Third, be very careful with your algebraic isolation. When you are moving a function of y, which we called h of y in our framework, from one side to the other, make sure you are dividing correctly. For example, if you are presented with the equation, die over dx equals 2x times y, the correct separated form is 1 over y times die equals 2x times dx. A common error here is to accidentally multiply the y over to the left, resulting in y times die, which would lead you down the wrong path. Finally, don't ignore your absolute values. When you encounter an integral like the integral of 1 over x, the mathematically precise result is the natural log of the absolute value of x. While in many of our high school level problems, we often work with positive variables and can sometimes omit them, in formal mathematics, that absolute value is a necessary part of the solution. Keep these 4 points in mind as you practice, and you will find much more success in finding the correct general solutions. Key takeaways. First, let's revisit the variable separable method. As we discussed throughout the slides, this is a specific technique you can use whenever you encounter a differential equation, where the derivative, die over dx, can be factored into a product of one function containing only x and another function containing only y. If you can split them up like that, you're ready to proceed. Second, remember the concept of the general solution. When we solve these equations, we aren't just finding a single line. We are finding an expression that includes an arbitrary constant. See, this constant is vital because it represents an entire family of curves rather than just one specific path. Third, I want you to memorize this core process. If you ever feel lost during an exam, just come back to these 4 steps. Separate the variables, integrate both sides, add your constant of integration, and finally, simplify the expression if possible. Lastly, a very important reminder. Integration is the engine that drives this entire method. Your ability to solve these differential equations depends heavily on your proficiency with standard integration formulas. So, keep practicing those integration rules. All right, we have reached the end of our lesson. Let's take a moment to recap the key takeaways from today's session to ensure everything is clear before you move on to your practice problems. That concludes our tutorial. Great job staying focused, and I will see you in the next lesson.